Today we're going to be talking about the most important topic facing the younger generation, and many in the older generations as well. That's internet addiction. But instead of saying, well, burn your computers, burn your phones, disconnect from the internet, we have a different solution. And that solution is rooted in an ancient wisdom, rooted in Torah, and rooted in the teachings of the Jewish mystics of Kabbalah and informed by the Hasidic movement. So we're going to explore how to cure internet addiction through the Torah. So first, we're going to travel back first to January of 2007, and then to June 29th of 2007. So anyone who is familiar with the internet and technology, who is a bit of a buff, a history buff, in terms of these past 20 years or more, knows exactly what happened in 2007 and knows exactly what happened in June 29th of 2007. So in January of 2007 at Macworld, that's when everything changed. You see the world today where everyone's staring down at their little screens that they carry in their pockets or purses. It didn't always used to be like that. You see videos of high school graduations in the late 90s, and people were laughing and joking in the hallways, looking at each other, smiling. And what do you see many times today? You see kids walking through hallways, but they're looking down. They're looking down at something that's glowing. Something something it's emitting light. It's doing something, and that something is what we call an iPhone or a smartphone. So in January 2007, they were time traveling back to Macworld, most anticipated convention of the year, right? At least for people that are into Apple products. So there, and what's considered one of the most famous speeches, at least in terms of the world of technology, Steve Jobs launched what he said was not going to be one product. Usually one product is enough, but 3 products. But it turns out those 3 products was indeed one product. A breakthrough internet communicator. An iPod, a new generation iPod with widescreen and touchscreen controls. An iPod is what they had before Apple Music and Spotify. It's the way that you used to listen to music digitally. You had an iPod. And a phone. A breakthrough internet communicator, an iPod, and a phone. And he repeated that until the audience got exactly what he was saying. He repeated those 3 things. But as it turned out, as we know, those 3 things was indeed one thing called the iPhone. You can see the audience. The audience is like, even back then, even at that moment, you realized that everything's changing. These past almost 20 years now since that announcement, how different the world is. That is only as a result of smartphones, also AI and other technological and scientific advancements. But if you want to sum up these past 20 years of like how much things have changed, just think prior to that announcement of what it was like when, okay, you had Blackberries, you could text people, you could communicate, but it wasn't to the extent that you have now. That everyone has a computer in their pockets or purses that you carry around with you all the time. And so it's no wonder that there's this thing called addiction. And so what is actually happening, first of all, when someone is scrolling and browsing and messaging chatbots? What do you hope to gain from that? So if we can abstract it just for a moment and say, well, you're looking down and it's glowing, it's emitting some light. And you think that maybe I'm going to discover something new. Maybe I'm going to find something out that I didn't know before, something new and exciting. Humans are curious, after all. And so we have this thing at our fingertips, literally, and we can access anything we want. Whatever you want to know, here it is. And it's very exciting. It's very mind-blowing at first. But then we realize that life with technology is not so simple. You can use technology, like right now, to share a Torah class, or you can use technology to either waste your time or do something that is maybe not so helpful for you. And so when we think about our pursuits, really it comes down to, am I fulfilling myself? Am I doing those things which are meaningful and purposeful in my life? Not those things that initially seem so exciting and so new but then day after day, year after year, I'm realizing that maybe I need to break up with it, or at least for a time to break up with it. Maybe I need to fast from technology. Maybe I need to delete some apps, turn it off, go outside, meet actual friends, go for a walk in the park, go hiking, do something actually in the real world. And so what we're seeing now is we're starting to realize not that we're going to have a life without technology, but we're having a life that also included in that life is technology. Meaning what? Meaning that technology is not the end all. There's many things, good things that technology can do, but also there's many wonderful things that technology can't do. So from that first moment in January 2007, when the iPhone was actually released in June 29 of 2007, we've had some time to think about it and think about what actually is this helping me to do. There's many good things that technology helps me to do, but many things that it's not. Is it a good idea to doomscroll for hours? Probably not. Do I remember what I doomscrolled through? Was it really helpful? Maybe some things, but odds are many times there were things that were not helpful. Things that didn't use my time, things that didn't further my ambitions and my mission in this world. Because after all, we're here for a purpose. We have this lifetime to make the most of it. And if you believe that God put down your soul and a body in this lifetime for a specific mission and purpose. And so technology can be very helpful in fulfilling that mission and purpose. For instance, right now, in terms of giving a Torah class, people around the world can see it. But many times, it's not so helpful. So first, let's see, 3 things that are really one thing. So what would be another example of 3 things that are really one thing, right? When Steve Jobs announced the iPhone to this excited crowd at Macworld, he said it's a breakthrough internet communicator, an iPod, which means you can listen to music, all this music that you like, and a phone. So we have actually something that actually is filled with actual lights, not just an LED display. And that thing is what we call the Torah. So the Torah, you say, well, what does that have to do with our times, with our generation, with this modern world? It's given over 3,300 years ago to Moses at Mount Sinai. Why are you even talking about that? Okay, so let's explore, let's see. Anyone who likes fantasy knows if you have someone who's training, like in a magical, fantastical realm, he has to train from an ancient book with a cryptic language. So in the real world, that ancient book with a cryptic language, a very beautiful language, but not always easy to understand, it takes a lifetime to really redelve and redelve and redelve. That's the Torah. So for a Torah, you need, for any book, especially a Torah book, you have three aspects that are really one thing. You have what's called the sofer, the author or the scribe. A Torah scroll, or a mezuzah, or tefillin, or the scroll of Esther, needs to be handwritten by someone who knows what they're doing, letter by letter, with a quill. And there's many laws. That's called a sofer, a scribe. You can't have an AI robotic hand write a Torah scroll. You can't have a printer print out a Torah scroll. It has to be written by a human, by a Jewish person knowledgeable in the laws, obeying the laws and following the laws to the T. But it means an author. So specifically now we're talking about Torah books. So every Torah book has an author. In terms of the Torah itself, so God is the author. And it was given to Moses for the sake of the Jewish people and for the sake of the entire world. And then you have the Sefer. You have the book itself. That's the medium of the communication. How is the Torah, how is the teachings, Torah also means instruction, how is the content being conveyed? What's the medium for the content? How are you conveying the content? So that's through the book. That's a Sefer. So you have a Sofer, you have a Sefer. That's the same letters in Hebrew, same root, same Hebrew root. Samach Pei Resh. And then you have a Sipur. You have the story. And that's where you start to get reader engagement. Because why? It's not just about reading something. AI can make you books, can make you music, can get anything you want, except it doesn't have that human element. You're not connecting to an author when you're reading a book or an article written by AI. You can't be a student of AI, but you can be a student of a teacher, especially a Torah teacher. And so the Sipur, the story, which again is from the same root, Samach Pei Resh, as an author or scribe in a book, is you're connecting to the story of the author himself. Not only their Torah teachings, also their Torah teachings, but also to the life story of that teacher. For instance, the father of the Lubavitcher Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Schneerson, so as he was exiled by the Russian authorities for spreading Judaism, his wife had to make ink herself in order that he should be able to write Torah, in order that her husband should be able to write Torah. So when you read a Torah teaching of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, it's a good thing to keep in mind that many of his commentaries were written by ink that had to be made like manually, like do it yourself ink. That while he was in exile. So this is an important part of the Torah itself. Anytime you learn Torah, it's a good idea to learn about the person, to see at least the time that they lived in, but also the personality or some stories about their life. It's a very good thing to do with, for instance, the Talmudic sages, the sages of the Gemara, of the Talmud. Learn about who they are, about their lives. It's very, very many interesting stories about them. But so too, any Torah teacher, it's their Torah, their instruction is one thing, but their whole life is an instruction. Their whole life is Torah. So much so that this great tzaddik, this righteous Torah teacher, Rabbi David of Lelov, he said, currently we learn the tractate Bava Kama, but in the future we're going to have a tractate called Rabbi David of Lelov. What does that mean? We're going to have a tractate, we're going to have Torah that's going to be called Rabbi David of Lelov. It means that the whole life story of a tzaddik is Torah. It's an autobiography, you could say, but included in that autobiography is stories of their life, but also the Torah that they've taught during their lifetime. And all of it is part of the story, the Torah, the instruction of the life of a tzaddik. So going back to this announcement from Steve Jobs about the iPhone, something that changed these past close to 20 years now, thinking back on what are we really searching for when we stare down at our screens, and to realize that we're searching for light, but not light from something external to us. We're searching for our own light, our own potential, the own light of our own soul. Ultimately, and to shine that light to others, to inspire others, to help others. Right? It's no fun to just read stuff. You want to share it with other people. Right? You press the share button. So too with our Torah learning, to know that not only are we connecting to Torah, which is called light, compared to light, Torah is compared to light, we're also doing it for the sake of ultimately fulfilling our mission and purpose in this world, through inspiring others, through helping others. Someone is going through some difficult situation. Torah also means satara. It frees their knotted, difficult situation. Someone doesn't know how to, they feel boxed in, they don't know where to go, they don't know where to turn. You sit down with them and learn Torah. And it opens up the pathways, you'd be surprised. And so where do we learn this from? How is it actually that we see the light of Torah? And how do we get this to be more exciting than technology, right? It's one thing, you could just say, oh yeah, I'm going to delete apps, I'm going to put my phone away, but then inevitably what happens? You download the app again, turn your phone back on. We have to have a replacement. It's not good enough just to fast, just to do an internet fast. You have to replace it with something, because there's a desire that comes from a deep place in your soul, that you're trying to express something. And what is that desire? Again, that's the desire for true light, for good light, for holy light. And we're saying that's the desire for seeing the light in Torah. So how do you do that? Well, we have a model for that. And that model is learned out from Joseph. So Joseph, when he was 17, he was sold as a slave in Egypt, to this household of Potiphar and his wife. And for the entire year, his wife tried to seduce Joseph, tried to tempt him to be with her. And he refused. He stood strong in his holiness, steadfast, even though he was alone in Egypt. He knew God was together with him there. And he stayed strong. He remembered the upbringing together with his father Jacob. And he withstood the test for an entire year. But then it came to the point where there was some idol festival, and the only two people at home that day was the wife of Potiphar and Joseph. She thought, this is going to be my opportunity to get him. But what happens? He ran away. And as a result, Potiphar's wife said, Joseph tried to assault me. She was so embarrassed, she made something up. And so Joseph was thrown into prison, into the dungeon in Egypt for 12 years. And then came the time when Pharaoh had these dreams that needed an interpretation. And in all of Egypt, all of his advisors didn't know how to interpret Pharaoh's dreams to his liking, until finally this Hebrew slave boy sitting in the dungeon, was suggested to Pharaoh by the chief butler, the wine server. And after 12 years in the dungeon, we know what happened. That Joseph was released from the dungeon and became the effective ruler of all of Egypt. Someone who not only helped Egypt survive the famine, the years of famine, but also his entire family, including his brothers who threw him into the pit those years before. So what does that relate to our times? Well, we could say that year that Joseph spent being steadfast, pushing away the advances of Potiphar's wife, that's like a person that's going on the internet but tries to be their best to be careful. Maybe they have a filter, maybe they don't have a filter, but they try their best not to look at inappropriate things, not to go to inappropriate places, to try their best to be careful. But they're still in the house. They're still looking at their phone. They're still on the internet. But then comes the 12 years. And these 12 years, Joseph was completely disconnected from Egyptian society, except for the warden, except for the fellow prisoners. But the warden put everything in Joseph's charge. You can imagine that as far disconnected as possible, that's Joseph during those 12 years in the dungeon. And what did he do? He contemplated his connection with God, those things that he learned with his father, and just his situation, and trying to stay conscious of God during those 12 years. So that's like a person that totally wants to go retro. They don't want to be around technology. It's just draining their life. And so they escape. They really, at least for a time, they totally don't want anything to do with it. And so that's becoming very popular today also. But what do we see after those 12 years? So like Joseph, he totally disconnected from Egyptian culture, from the advancements of the modern world at that time. Egypt was the most advanced ancient civilization at the time, and he totally was disconnected in this dungeon for 12 years. So too today, a person said, I tried to be careful, but I still woke up hours later and realized, I wondered where my hours went. They're just doomscrolled and wasted time. But what's the final stage? The final stage is that Joseph re-entered the world. The whole time keeping his connection with God. That's consistent throughout his entire story. At least since he's thrown in the pit, he matures. He starts learning that he has to grow up, and he has to mature. And he grew up into the leader that he became, and the great righteous leader that he became. And what happened? He was the only person that could interpret Pharaoh's dreams. Not the advisors, not anyone else. So that's like a person that separates from the world, but then they go back into the world. And they become, as a result of their time apart, they become much more insightful, because they can see things much more clearly. So the very best way for seeing things clearly is to immerse in Torah. It's called going into the city of refuge of Torah. You're safe there. You don't need to worry about the buzzes and the pings and all these things, the latest notifications. You have the set time of whatever it is to learn Torah. Maybe you go to a yeshiva or a seminary, or you have set times to learn Torah every day, and that's it. Nothing else. No. You're not going to look at anything, not going to be distracted during that time. Someone could be offering you $1 million, and sorry, you can offer it to me after I'm done learning. And so that was Joseph during these 12 years. And then it came time to re-enter Egyptian society. But he stayed steadfast in his holiness and in being strong to his upbringing from his father Jacob. And as a result, he got this, seems like almost like a superhero name. This royal name, Safnat Paneach, the revealer of the hidden, or the revealer of mysteries. You can imagine that like on a comic book or the title of a movie. Now playing the revealer of mysteries. So that was this Safnat Paneach. That was the royal name given to Joseph. That actually is the title of a book from the Rogachover Gaon, this great rabbi. So, again, what's the lesson for us? Is that you see that there's a problem with this addiction to the internet. You know that this is, as one animated movie said, you don't want to keep staring at this ghoulish blue light, this ghoulish light of the screens. Why is it ghoulish? It's artificial. It's not real light. And you realize it's not real. It's not real. But it's very tempting. That is until we know how to access the light of Torah. So with Joseph, what's the process here? This is a 3-stage process. Is that first he had to go through this process called submission during his year in the house of Potiphar. Every day he had to push away the advances of his wife. And then it came time where he had to separate entirely from the world, from the culture of his time. He had to totally, no phone, no internet, nothing. Just learning Torah, just connecting with God. It was before the Torah was given, but still, and contemplating on God, on his connection with God, on his upbringing from his father, on teachings that he learned from his father. And then it came time to re-enter. And man, oh man, when it came time to re-enter, he was a superhero, he was a leader, he was this great, heroic individual which saved the entire ancient civilization from famine, including his own family, including his brothers that sold him into slavery. So too in our days. Oh, and he was given this title, Safnat Paneach, the revealer of mysteries. So what does it mean to be a revealer of mysteries? Well, it means to see the light of Torah. In our times, that's what that means. Now that the Torah was given, Moses received the Torah at Mount Sinai from God. And in our times, what it means to reveal mysteries is to first of all see it within ourselves, but then to share it with others. How Torah is the most exciting thing. To innovate new insights in Torah. And that happens by us going through that process of first turning away from those inappropriate images, being very careful with the things that we see and hear. Even if we have the internet, to be very careful. Then, having set times for Torah learning. Nothing else matters during that time that you're learning Torah. It's the best thing is to have a set number of weeks or months or years to go and learn Torah. But if you can't do that, at least every day, you have set times. And then, when it comes time to re-enter the world, what does it mean to re-enter the world? It means that you now see the light, now see how exciting Torah is. So then you have to be a hero. You have to help other people to untie the knots, it's called. If someone's going through a difficulty, if you see that you can help someone, so you sit and learn Torah with them. It doesn't matter what Torah. You're gonna, as long as it's authentic, good, 100% pure and holy Torah, you can open up to any page and sit and learn with someone, and you'll see it'll answer their questions. That's how it works. Because it's divine wisdom. And divine wisdom doesn't start and end on any page. You don't have to scroll around to find the right Torah. So, okay, if possible, you can learn about the Torah portion of the week or about the upcoming holidays. But if you happen to just have one Torah book around and someone comes to you and is in need of help, you take out that book, you open to a page, and you start learning. And you'll see how it answers their questions. That's how it works.
So the iPhone was released on June 29th, 2007. Can you imagine? Less than 20 years ago, and how things have changed. But we've had time to reflect. We've had time to be addicted, and now it's time to really make sense of it moving forward. So do you know what that day was on the Hebrew calendar? First of all, how things work is you can't orchestrate this in advance, right? And you don't presume that Steve Jobs and Apple planned this in advance. But in retrospect, you can look at this and say, wow, that's by divine providence, that God is orchestrating these things as lessons, as very good lessons. And you're not basing your whole life on it, but it's an anecdotal, nice, interesting thing. And that's why we include it at the end of this video. Because it's a good thing to think about, but not too seriously. So June 29th, 2007, on the Hebrew calendar, was the 13th of the Hebrew month of Tammuz. Now, on the 13th of the Hebrew month of Tammuz was the day that Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, the sixth Lubavitcher Rebbe, was released from prison in Russia. He got the news that he was going to be released on the 12th of the Hebrew month of Tammuz, and he was released on the 13th, because the 12th was some type of illegal holiday. So why was he in prison? Well, the same reason that the Lubavitcher Rebbe's father was in exile, for spreading Torah, for spreading Judaism. See, communist Russia knew how powerful Torah is. If you have a dictator that takes over, right, what's the first thing they do? They have a book burning. That's how you control people. You burn books. So if you want to know how to lead the charge forward, you study Torah and you teach Torah, the divine wisdom from God. So what happened on this 13th day of the month of Tammuz? So that's when Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson was released from prison. So it's very appropriate that the day that the iPhone was released, on that year of 2007, was the year that commemorating, and this is a holiday that we celebrate every year, the day that Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson was released. Because his whole thing was spreading Torah, was teaching Torah. And he was released. So then, what is the real release that we're celebrating, that we celebrated on that day? This is another important lesson. It seems like everyone was celebrating the release of the iPhone. But now, close to 20 years later, we're waking up and realizing, I know technology, and I know there's good things about even AI, there's good things about it, but there's also a lot of hype and hyperbole. There's a lot of advertising, a lot of PR. And to see beyond it and to realize that the very best use of technology is to teach people where the light is really to be found, which is within one's own potential, within the light of one's own soul. Because each of us have this potential to inspire others, to shine the light of our soul to others, to lighten up the world, as the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, to be lamplighters. So it's a misdirect. June 29th, 2007 was a misdirect. You thought you were looking in one place, but really, now just turn your head and realize that the real excitement was somewhere else that year and every year. This holiday of the 13th of Tammuz, when the sixth Lubavitcher Rebbe was released from prison. Because we all feel like technology can be a prison for us. We can feel like we're slaves to it, or it can be the greatest thing. It could be getting us in terms of to be so productive. Like this message right now, this video right now, it could be that you're on the other side of the world and you can be listening to it. It's a great thing of technology. But we also have to be free, not slaves to anything, not technology, not to anything else. To know that, as Joseph did during those 12 years in the dungeon, that you could be free even in the dungeon. You could be free anywhere as long as you're conscious of your connection to God. And the freest thing is to be a hero for someone else. That's the most practical advice. That's what they always tell you. If you're feeling down, go out and volunteer. Go outside and help someone. Do anything. And so too, in the context of Torah, go and teach somebody. Go and teach Torah to somebody. It'll help you to see the light, and it'll help the other person to see the light. And as the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, the Torah that you learn with someone else is 1,000 times more powerful and amazing, and you make so much more progress in terms of your Torah learning, 1,000 times more than if you just learn on your own. So this is called, if you're just staring at your phone, you're just like hoping for your own light. It's a dark room and you have this huddled over this phone. But to be a hero for someone else, now that's sharing true light, the light of your soul, to someone else. And that's the best thing. And ultimately you're making the world a more light-filled place. A place where there's just God's goodness and kindness is revealed. That you have a global community of people caring about each other and trying to educate each other. So what's the take-home lesson? Is that it's very good to seek out light, but it's not to be found just in the light of a screen. If you learn Torah, for instance, using technology, that's fine. That can be very good. But to know also that you have to turn that motivation, turn that search for light into your study of Torah both, and also to teach Torah to others, and specifically to reveal some new innovation, new insights, new light-filled, exciting things in your Torah learning as you're teaching it to others. Because that'll keep that excitement and then turn that excitement outwards to help others.